all we have in terms of arguments for the composition of the poem is the text of the poem itself. And I have argued in my own work on Beowulf, neatly published in a little book, The Origins of Beowulf, that a number of independent indications point to a composition several centuries before the surviving copying of the manuscript and in an Anglian kingdom. And certainly Mercia is a possibility, but so is the kingdom of the Eastern Angles here in Norfolk and Suffolk. And there are a number of independent genealogical arguments which, as I say, converge on that possibility.
Whoever composed the work had certainly received a Christian education, producing a version possibly less simple than the pagan original told or sung in mead halls, and laying greater emphasis upon Christian-style traditions and beliefs. Even though Beowulf is not an historic figure as such, the fact certain characters and events portrayed are real suggests his fictional character was inspired by known heroes. There can be no doubt the poem was composed after Ute, Anglo and Saxon tribes landed in Britain, though perhaps based upon more ancient stories amended to suit period and audience. According to the epic, after returning from what is now Denmark to Sweden, Beowulf took part in a disastrous expedition led by King Hygelac into Frisia, largely modern Holland, recorded by Gregory of Tours as taking place in AD 516. With the historic Hygelac killed and his army destroyed, in the poem his widow offered Beowulf the kingdom in preference to her own son. Instead, Beowulf chose to become the young king's guardian and advisor, accepting leadership only when the boy was later killed in battle, thereafter ruling his people in prosperity for some 50 years. The poem's second section concerns an older Beowulf, who, as king of his people, has ruled wisely and bravely for 50 years, a period that ends when treasure beneath an ancient burial mound was robbed and its guardian dragon woken. This ancient funeral barrow, resembling those often to be seen against British skylines, is clear reference to Nordic and earlier burial practice. A treasure trove of great richness, glittering gold spread across the ground. These ancient tombs are often associated in legend with dread warnings, and so it was in Beowulf's land where the high-born chieftains who buried the treasure declared it until doomsday to be so accursed. But one foolish man ignored this ancient threat, and by stealing a golden goblet from the sleeping dragon's hoard, aroused fire-breathing revenge that killed and destroyed Beowulf's people and belongings. Gold obviously epitomized wealth, often used as kingly gifts to great warriors or placed in their burial hoards. Gold under gravel, gone to earth, and useless to men, says the poem. But it is significant Germanic folklore makes clear the greed gold inspired could also make it accursed. Gold's potential evil is revealed when it becomes cause of Beowulf's death. Beowulf is now old, but has to protect his people. Approaching the tomb bearing a sword and iron shield, the latter to protect him from the dragon's fiery breath, he proclaims, "If the evil creature leaves his earthen lair, I shall pursue this fight for the glory of winning." But the hero's personal warriors ran away in fear, only one remaining to help Beowulf face the dragon's fury. There followed a long and bitter struggle until the poem describes how once more the king gathered his strength, and drawing a stabbing knife, dealt it a deadly blow. The creature was killed, but in its death throes delivered Beowulf a poisonous and mortal wound. Those who might have saved him returned shamefaced from the woodlands into which they had fled, only to find their king dying, his one companion showing Beowulf the gold he had taken from the tomb. Knowing death is near, Beowulf gives instructions for his funeral. "Order my men to build a great barrow when my pyre has cooled. It will become Beowulf's barrow and mark the way for ships." The The epic poem ends with a long description of the hero's funeral ceremonies that provide epilogue to the whole work, his body being burned on a pyre, hung with helmets and war shields and shining armour, weaponry that typified his life and people. The flames roar, accompanied by sorrowful lamentations from all who witnessed. Like those at Sutton Hoo, Beowulf's remains were interred under a great earthen mound, here raised high above the sea that so influenced these northern people's destiny. The tragedy of this mighty work may mirror a tragic view of life that underpinned Anglo-Saxon society and provided its very roots. What motivates all heroes of the Nordic epic, to which Beowulf is no exception, is the eternal human desire to gain recognition as being of outstanding merit. In this, the role of gifting and treasure is crucial. In the later, more sophisticated and centrally organized society introduced by the Normans, it would be possession of land that bound men together. Barons received lands from the king in return for allegiance, as would their own followers from them. In Beowulf's period, such bonding was fulfilled by the gifting of rich goods, often in the form of cups, rings, swords, and chainmail. The king is referred to as guardian of his people's treasure, and in return receives their loyalty in war and peace. Considered worse than any tyrant was a leader who did not reward service with rich gifts.
The whole society seems to have been based on this idea that the Lord, which means bread giver, he gives something to his household and to his family. He gives them bread, he helps them, he distributes his wealth, and in return those people give him back their loyalty, their support, and if he needs help they provide it. And they were tied together by gift giving, by exchanging, as we said, gifts in one direction for loyalty in the other direction. They built strong bonds through time, and these may have been important things for the Anglo-Saxons, far more important than they are for us today.
But in the culmination of Beowulf's epic, such treasure brings about the final catastrophe that is Beowulf's death. Earth-buried gold, useless to the ancients who have passed away. Discovered by a dragon who guards the rich trove fiercely, even this creature has no use for it, but wreaks havoc when one small item is pilfered.